In honor of the entire Slow family getting Surf as a special community attack, I decided to put together the Slowfamily PvP IV Deep Dive, covering the important stat checks and associated PvP IVs for all 6 slow Pokemon. If this is your first time seeing a PvP IV Deep Dive, or if at any point you're kind of confused what I'm talking about in this video, link up above and in the description to my PvP IVs simplified video. Basically, get your feet wet before you dive off into the deep end here. And of course, if you want to reference any of this information in a text-based format, link in the description to my article on GamePress, the Slowfamily PvP IV Deep Dive, covering all the information I talk about in this video with some more details, but in a text-based format. And without further ado, let's begin. All 6 of them. Starting out with Cantonian Slowbro, the original Slowbro. Here I have 159 different IV spreads listed out for you that I feel are more ideal for him. And you will notice that the majority of these appear to just be straight high stat products, like the better ranks, low attack, high defense, high HP. And that's because I didn't find any attack breakpoints for Slowbro that really stood out to me. So you may as well just go for the high stat product. Now this list here is cut at 144 HP. That HP is important for the Metagross 0-1 shield scenario, the Claydol 0-0 shield scenario, the Galarian Stunfisk 0-1 shield scenario, so you don't spend any shields, they spend 1 shield, you can still overcome the G-Fisk there, and for the mirror match. A lot of the mirror matches that don't involve Psychic, it's just like Surf and Ice Beam, come down to the fast move, and because it comes down to the fast move, you're going to have some HP to overcome that match. The 118.4 defense that I have cut here is just to make the 144 HP more consistent. So if you do have a little bit less defense than that, you could make up for it with a bit more HP. But I don't think that you can really make up for less HP with even more defense, because when it comes to like the Slowbro mirror matchup, for instance, it really does come down to the fast move. So you need as much higher integers of HP as you possibly can for that, as long as it falls into even numbers instead of odd numbers. It's a whole thing. Now, if you do want to check out this table for yourself, it is linked in the article on GamePress. Every single table I show you here today is hyperlinked in a PvP IVs table section. Make it nice and easy for you. Then when it comes to Slowking, the original Jotonian Slowking, it's the exact same table, because Slowbro and Slowking have the exact same stats. So which one is better between the two? Well, they both have the same fast moves, and they have the same charge moves, with a few differences. The Slowbro has Ice Beam, the Slowking has Blizzard and Fire Blast. Ice Beam is a better attack than Blizzard and Fire Blast is, as far as like energy, damage-wise kind of considerations. But one thing that you might want to think about when it comes to Slowking is that Blizzard and Fire Blast put on more shield pressure onto your opponents. So even if you don't have Blizzard and Fire Blast on your Slowking, maybe you're just Surf Psychic, your opponent doesn't know what charge moves you have. So when you're charging up a bunch of energy and you're up against, a Feint Attack Bronzong, let's say, and it's about to farm you down, and you push that charge move button, you could be pushing Surf, but your opponent doesn't know that you don't have Fire Blast, right? So are they going to spend a shield? I mean, you're using the Slowking instead of the Slowbro, so obviously you're doing that for a reason, right? Because you want to use Fire Blast for this kind of situation, so they could spend a shield. And worst case, they don't spend a shield, they'd get hit with Surf, and it'd be the exact same kind of result as if you're using a Slowbro. So you have the chance to get more out of it, while also maintaining a similar kind of performance. That said, there could be metas where Ice Beam is important for its speed, and that would tilt, the things, more in favor of the Slowbro there. I'm just saying, don't count the Slowking out. Shield pressure is real, and you could happen to be running that Fire Blast or that Blizzard, and I don't think your opponent would really appreciate eating that, right? Next up, we have the Shadow Slowbro and the Shadow Slowking. I don't have shadow assets, so I flipped them upside down. That's how you know they're inverted. They're evil. They're wrong. They're the Shadow Brothers, right? And here we do have a bit of an attack stat consideration. Starting at 113.71 attack, you can get a breakpoint on the rank 1 and rank 2 level of defense of Galarian Stunfisk. And with this breakpoint, you can now overcome it in the 2-2 shield situation, and you could prevent it from baiting into an Earthquake in the 1-1 shield situation. So it just makes that matchup that much more smooth. If you are concerned about higher levels of defense on the Galarian Stunfisk though, having at least 114.95 would be required for the rank 3 level of defense of Galarian Stunfisk, which is probably the highest level of defense that you could reasonably ever meet in the wild, in my opinion at least. So keep that in mind. Then when it comes to the bulk, we got 141 HP and 117.8 defense. This bulk is necessary to do the Feint Attack Bronzong 2-2 shield scenario and makes the Medicham 0-0 shield scenario more consistent too. At the end of the day, the Shadow Bros are kind of more like cup Pokemon, even more so than the other options are. But like if you think about a cup where both, I don't know, Psychic and Steel or Ground type Pokemon are allowed, having that level of attack and this level of bulk would be really helpful for the Galarian Stunfisks and the Medichams that you might run into there. And I guess the Bronzongs if they wiggle their way in too. Now, while I don't have a table for this because I don't really have a good level of bulk to ground it around, if you happen to have a Shadow Slow Dude that can hit over 118 attack, like closer to 119 attack realistically, you can get a breakpoint on the Galarian Rapidash, allowing you to beat it in the 2-2 shield scenario. Now that is just one matchup, and it is pretty harsh on the bulk in a pretty big way, but I guess it's worth thinking about if you happen to have it. We're in the Psychic Cup, Galarian Rapidash is kind of everywhere, and if you want to do that specific thing, well, that is a way to get her done. Next up, we have the Galarian Slowking, everybody's favorite spicy boy. Really slow attacker, has the Hex so it can get there faster, but oh gosh, if it had a bait move, well, now it's got Surf. And instead of having like 100 options, we got 13 most bespoke options. Main concern for the Galarian Slowking mostly is going to be the mirror match, so you're going to want to have higher attack for charge move priority at a baseline, but you'll also want to have at least 138 HP so you can overcome the mirror and more like unique scenarios, right? So 138 HP, kind of important. This bulk is also useful for overcoming the Slowbro or the Slowking, I guess, in the 1-1 shield scenario as well. When it comes to the defense, we're cut at 117.5, and that's for the Claydol 1-1 shield scenario and the Bruxish 1-1 shield scenario. If you checked out my Bruxish video, link up above and in the description there, Bruxish is kind of feasting on our defense stat a little bit, so if you do want to be even more protected against a Bruxish, then you might want to go for an even higher defense stat than I have listed here. And I'd say if you're going to sacrifice a stat, you really don't want to sacrifice that HP, so you might want to lower the attack here on the list or just go for a more generalized high stat product version. But what you will notice here though that we do got the rank 3 and the rank 9 showing up here, so yeah, protecting against Bruxish while maintaining your other matchups can be pretty difficult. Also, when it comes to this attack, I have it cut at 116.7, not just as a way to get CMP, but if Girafarig starts rising up as a way to meet the Galarian Slowking, this can also get a breakpoint on Girafarig, giving you more opportunities to KO it. But it's kind of mostly here for a nice soft check for the CMP. It's just purposeful in case that comes up. But in general, though, you want to get that charge move priority for the mirror. Now, if the mirror matchup isn't that big of a concern for you and you have no fear of the Girafarig, then of course, dropping this attack stat in favor of like a higher defense stat or something is worthwhile to do as well. Then finally, we have the Galarian Slowbro, and the Galarian Slowbro has two distinct flavors. This first list here is the kind of Goldilocks riding kind of Galarian Slowbro here, with an attack weight that can allow you to potentially farm the Shadow Kanto Ninetales and a Shadow Wing Attack Charizard, which is pretty nice. And the attack weight can also better enable you to overcome the Pelipper in the 0-0 and 2-2 shield scenarios, should you be busting this thing out in a meta where those Pokemon would be present. As for the defense, we're cut at 108.83. This is to better potentiate a defense breakpoint against the Shadow Swampert, possibly enabling the 1-0 shield scenario, and then also the Walrein 2-2 shield scenario, and some select Claydol matchups as well. Claydol isn't going to be the best matchup for you, but you got Surf now, and you know, if they're slapping you for one less per fast move, maybe something could happen. Then when it comes to the HP, 144, this is kind of the minimum for flipping the Alolan Raichu 0-0 shield situation. If they have a higher attack weight, like they're a raid weighted one, then you're going to need like 146 HP, but if they are a trade weighted one with a lower attack stat, 144 could do the deal in the 0-0. Now, if those attack breakpoints for those farming situations just sounded way too circumstantial, kind of unrealistic for a Galarian Slowbro to find itself in, and you just want to drop that for even higher bulk, well then I would up the bulk standard to about 109 defense, so you're even more fortified against the defense breakpoints I talked about earlier, and then 146 HP. And this isn't just for Alolan Raichu, it can also enable the Altaria 0-0 and the Shadow Walrein 2-2 shield scenario as well, and then gives you a bit more potential against the Shadow Victory Bell. If you want to have like an even higher level of consistency against the Shadow Victory Bell, though, you'll want to be looking at about 147 HP. Now, if you're thinking, okay, Ryan, that means the rank 1, all is said and done, well, you might want to take a closer look at that rank 2 with its higher defense, because there is a Umbreon defense breakpoint that starts at 110.16 for the rank 1 Umbreon. And with this breakpoint, you have more potential to overcome it in the 2-1 shield scenario without using Focus Blast, which could be nice, especially if the Umbreon knows you don't have Focus Blast from how the fights kind of progressed. They could just sit on their laurels and then end up sitting in a pit because you're able to overcome them because you got that defense breakpoint. Now, there are other high defense weighted ones other than the one that's on this list, but they would drop your HP below 146, and I'd say overall the HP is a bit more of a priority than what the defense is, in my opinion here. So if you do have one though that's like 144 HP with a higher than 110.7 defense, then I think that is a perfectly valid one to star, mark, save it for a rainy day. Maybe you'll be in a meta with it where that would be really useful to have. Overall, I gotta say that Galarian Slowbro, compared to the other slow dudes here, is definitely one where you might want to have a couple different IV variations for, depending on what meta it might find itself in. At the end of the day, the rank 1 or 2 is probably going to be best for most situations, but them attack breakpoints are attack breakpoints, and when they matter, they can matter. You don't have to power up everything immediately. You can save it for when you need it. Just saying. Now, you might be sitting back thinking, Ryan Swag, this is great and all if I happen to have them, but how am I going to make sure I save the right ones and toss all the bad ones during community day? I only got 3 hours to catch all the possible slow things I possibly can. How do I best potentiate my ability to get the right ones from this video? And, well, you can't. Nah, I'm messing with you. We got the Arubki method. If you're not familiar, Arubki makes these search strings for a lot of spotlight hours and community days where it filters out all the Pokemon IV spreads that you're not looking for, right? So then you can mass transfer them and then keep catching, saving the ones that you might want. And this method doesn't have any false positives. It does have false negatives. So some stinky IVs might be saved, but there's no false positives. So a good IV won't get tossed. And when it comes to some of these community days, I work with the Rubkey to have a swag filter, should you want to include the swag IVs, that will include those Pokemon as well as the hundo and the high stat product ones. So link in the description to Arubkey's post that has all of the search strings that you might be looking for. And if you're not familiar with the Arubkey method, it looks a little confusing for you, link up above and in the description to my video on this advanced search string method so you can avoid the pitfalls of it and use it the best way possible. Now, from that video, you might recall, if you've seen it, some phones have a weird copy-paste text limit where you can't use it. So you'd have to find somebody who has a phone that you could use it for, log into their phone, and then save the search string after you put it in on your account, and then log out, so then you could use it, because then you can use it in this workaround kind of way. But if you're not interested in doing that, or you're just not interested in learning the Arubkey method, all the IVs that I've highlighted in this video are searchable with the more basic search string of 0 to 1 attack and 2 to 4 defense and 2 to 4 HP there. So that is another way, and that also means that it's compatible with a inverted search string that I have on screen because I'm done thinking about the words I'm saying. But yeah, if you put in that search string, that will cover I think 90 to like 95% of the IVs that I talked about in this video. You might miss 1 or 2 of them, but if you can't do the Arubki method or you don't want to do the Arubki method, this is a pretty nice, simple workaround. Also, shout out to Laser Brian, aka Nordic Thunder, for making this simpler search string a little bit more bespoke by adding in the time and the slow filter, as well as filtering out the hundo as well, so you don't trash the hundo. That's what the exclamation point 4-star thing is. At any rate, that's all I gotta say about the Slow family right now. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. If you're curious about the Ultra League Slow family, I barely had enough time to get all the Great League stuff done. So, yeah, sorry guys. You factions players, you're on your own.